Hello, friends. Welcome back. It is time to talk some freaking Star Wars because we got some major freaking Star Wars news going here, friends. Matt is back in the house. How you doing, buddy?
Dude, I'm doing good. It's been a little bit, but we've been talking about this for years, and the day is here.
Dude, the day of reckoning. Oh my God! It is almost a bittersweet thing though. So there's a lot to kind of break down. If you've seen the title of this, you'll know what we're talking about. Kathleen freaking Kennedy. Is she out or is she in? We're going to be hitting up on some Star Wars Celebration news, things that are kind of coming up there. Star Wars sequels, we love to talk about that. I got the Shmi Skywalker Bloodline pulled up here. Freaking Solo Bloodline, all of it. Mace Windu. There's a crap ton to get to, but I just wanted to start with the big freaking heavy-hitting news. So as we record this, February 28th here, and we'll drop this the next day, there is literally, I think it was like 3 days ago or 2 days ago, where there was an announcement from, I forget what his name is, like the Puck. Let's go and find it real quick here. But it's announced that we went kind of viral on the interwebs there that Kathleen Kennedy is just out, that she is retiring. And so then there's this rebuttal, dude, right away. There's this rebuttal. She does an exclusive with Deadline and comes out to correct the record. Like almost as if she didn't want that to get out there without her. Like I think she wants to exit on her own, right? She wants to make her own announcement. She wants to do her own thing. And this was out of her control. And it went wild. And I would just tell you that some of the other Star Wars content creators that you see out there, they were like, I mean, the celebration, the victory celebration that like the Ewoks are going to like,
yes.
Maybe I'll cue some music here. And it's just like, they were freaking celebrating. And why? Because it hasn't felt like Star Wars. It's under her leadership, things have just been really, there's been some rocky roads. There's been some good. There's been some bad, mostly bad.
Roads not traveled.
Roads, amen, dude. I mean, it's just what I think the time for change has been ever pressing for the last several years. And something I heard, but so first of all, let me get your reaction too. Just like when you heard, so we hear the news, Kathleen Kennedy is out. And she has this plan for retirement. So you heard that first piece,
correct?
Right? Okay. Then the most recent stuff within the last 24 hours has been her Deadline article that comes out and says, hey, I am not, she's like, I want to say this, I'm not retiring right now. She basically says, like, I am not going to ever stop producing movies. I'm going to die producing movies. And then they press her a little bit further, and she's like, there is an exit strategy for her replacement. Like, she has definitely been working towards cultivating this. And she is saying, okay, within the next, she said either months, in the coming months, or at the end of this next year, there will be some sort of announcement. Now, I'm telling you, Star Wars Celebration is just around the corner. What a great time to bring out the new CEO of Lucasfilm. I mean, why not celebrate that where she's in sort of a safe place, right? She's in Japan. It's not like there's going to be a bunch of boos from the stage at Kathleen Kennedy in Japan. So you're going to have an announcement where she's like, I'm bringing out, this is my successor. We're going to work together for the next 9 months. And there's going to be this slow exit strategy. It's sort of what she's almost like trying to steal the thunder, if you will, from some content creators who are just like, let's go. They're loving it. And quite honestly, I think it's long overdue. What do you think?
I agree. Look, we've talked about Kathleen Kennedy so many times over the years, but now that we know that Kathleen Kennedy is leaving Star Wars, if you look at her legacy and track record over the course of these past, 13, 14 years, it's not been particularly good. I mean, if I had to grade it, I would probably give it a D, as like a generous D to give her, because really, if you first, we'll look at these successes. Okay. I would say, the Mandalorian, Rogue One, Andor. I think Andor season 2 looks really good. And then most of the animated stuff under her as the head of Star Wars has been pretty good, right?
Yep.
Clone Wars season 7, the end of Rebels, and Tales of the Jedi, Visions. You and I both really liked that. Thought that was a fun, cool thing. And while they haven't been, something that you and I have really raved about, like the Lego stuff, right, has been pretty good. She's still, the head of Lucasfilm. Video games have been okay. Like we never got a Battlefront 3, Battlefront 2 had a lot of issues and stuff like that. And you could say, well, that's just them licensing it out, but she's still the head honcho of Star Wars. She could put her foot down and say, no, I don't like that. You guys need to go back and do it. I mean, they're the ones with the power in this, situation. But then you look at the negatives, right? And of course, the big first one is the sequel trilogy. I mean, that alone derails almost everything, because that is the absolute core of Star Wars. And when you mess that up, it has ripple effects everywhere, which you and I have talked about. Then you have shows like The Acolyte, which didn't do as well. Book of Boba Fett, Kenobi didn't do particularly well. Ahsoka, I would even say, is almost Dave Filoni's first kind of misstep. I mean, it was okay. I don't think it really hit as well as they wanted it to. And you can say, well, that's Dave Filoni messing it up, not Kathleen Kennedy, but she's still the head of Star Wars. She is the one who everyone answers to, and she's the one who has ultimate creative control to say, all right, what are we doing here? Because she answers to Bob Iger, and before Bob Chapek, and then, back before Bob Iger, right? That's who they call her to say, hey, what's going on with this show and how's it looking? And then, so it's still her call on those things. But then I would say the most egregious part of her tenure at Star Wars, even worse perhaps than the sequel trilogy, is all of the almost hundreds, right? I mean, how many projects did they say this is in development and then nothing ever came from it? And you built this hype, you built all these fans wondering where things are, and that has huge ripple effects and has done so much damage to the Star Wars brand that big actors and things won't want to go near it. Right,
dude.
Because it's like, well, we were supposed to get a Lando show. We were supposed to get a sequel, a trilogy from Dan and Dave, the Game of Thrones guys. We were supposed to get a Rian Johnson trilogy. Rogue Squadron was announced and canceled, and then we're brought back, and who even knows where it's at anymore. And then, we're going to be getting a Taika Waititi movie, right? And then nothing about that. So I will say, if you look at Kathleen Kennedy's entire legacy as the head of Star Wars, I don't think it's a very positive one. There are some good moments, but I would say start to finish, not particularly that great. Even High Republic, look at how they built this whole thing, and it fell completely flat.
Flopped. It flopped. I hate to say that. Like, dude, we freaking root for Star Wars. We want Star Wars to be successful. And so when it's not, I'm not going to sit around here and freaking, I don't know, blow smoke up somebody's, what, just to sort of make it seem like it's something that it's not, that it's awesome. It really needed to be called out. And I hate that there was all these different games about like, it was super politically charged. There was tons of things about racism and all these different the toxic fan base and the different things that were coming out. It's like that there needs to be some accountability. I mean, like there needs to be some respect in terms of just like coming out. There's one time where I can remember where she came out and said like we learned from the sequels and that we had a lot to learn. And even JJ came out and said like planning was important to that, and we didn't have it. We weren't planning ahead. We were not thinking and working cohesively as a team. So it's a huge fumble to start out the gate with the sequels and to say you have. So people wonder why this decision for her to retire or step away is so talked about in Star Wars. And it goes back to the sequels, because as you said, the foundation of Disney Star Wars is the sequels, and they were not great. They just were not good. They're not good enough. And there was no plan. And I really wrestle and I try to figure out what the story is that they were telling there and what's the messaging, and just how could you have such a big fumble out the gate when you've bought this? And did you rush this? Did you rush to try to capitalize on the IP, or what's the deal there? Because to say that they didn't fumble, and I'm glad that they did acknowledge it, and eventually, like, the likes of Mark Hamill came out and had issues with The Last Jedi. Daisy Ridley came out and said, we didn't know whether I was a Kenobi, a Skywalker, a Palpatine. We didn't know what or who I was going to be mid-shoot, right? It seemed like there was no plan. And then you have, again, just, that is directly under her leadership. And it kind of taints it. It kind of makes it hard for us to look at other things and not be super critical when you start. If you would have started off like with a banger, if the sequels start off and you've got 1, 2, and 3, Matt, and they are freaking just phenomenal, right? And they're at least in terms of story, there's a beginning, middle, and end, and you knew that they had thought it through and they organized this, and maybe it didn't quite land, and maybe there's some politics or whatever, but at least it made sense, and you felt like they had this cohesive vision. I feel like her whole legacy at Lucasfilm would have been different, and it's the fact that we started off with a piss poor trilogy that I feel like it's hard for her to get these wins later on, or for people to acknowledge when she is doing a good job or when she does make good calls, because that just tainted her reign. So,
well, and the other thing about it too, and I think this is something that she commented on a little bit here in this Deadline interview, right, where she gave all this interview, is, to me, the other big knock on Kathleen Kennedy's legacy at Star Wars, she says in this Deadline interview, look, all the movies made $1 billion. So they were successful, right? But she also goes on to say, kind of jokingly, I'm placing some blame on Marvel's Kevin Feige because he had the magnificent streak of superhero hits and set an impossibly high bar. But now he's starting to take shrapnel. How daunting is it to run a company based on a beloved and iconic IP? What has been the most challenging thing about running Lucas? That's the question they asked about her. And then they ask her a little bit about the James Bond. Is she going to be taking over at MGM now? Because they bought all the rights to James Bond now. They finally were able to. And so there's like rumors that she's going to be, that Amazon is going to go try and get her. And that might be why she's leaving. Is to go head up the James Bond division, which sounds terrible.
Right. Yeah.
But she throws shade at Kevin Feige a little bit here, but it's like he was able to do something insane over 23, 25 movies. I mean, they've sort of had, it took 25 movies before they had fatigue. Right?
Yeah, dude, absolutely.
You couldn't get 3 movies right, and that's something I've been hammering for the past couple of years, is the biggest difference, and I think something that overshadows and hurts her legacy, hurts Kathleen Kennedy's legacy even more, is that while you were failing at the sequel trilogy, the guy next door at the same company, the guy is knocking it out of the park left and right, and he's doing it with an arm tied behind his back.
Yeah.
Right. Because he didn't have full access to Spider-Man for the entire MCU. He didn't have the X-Men until now. Right. I mean, and you still were able to do this huge thing, take B and C level characters and prop them up like the Guardians of the Galaxy. You go back, it's not like they were a well-known superhero to like the very casual moviegoers. And now they're like big name superheroes. Whereas Kathleen Kennedy had Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher at the beginning, and you still couldn't get it done. And what she does is she throws shade and she points fingers at her failures.
Yeah.
She said the problem with Solo was essentially Alden Ehrenreich, or however you pronounce his name.
Yeah, that's such a freaking joke, dude. That is, as you and I have said, it comes down to timing, placement. It comes off of this like really controversial movie that they had just, like The Last Jedi, and we weren't sure where we're going. No one knew what the timeline was there. There was no vision. There was no vision, and it was just this smattering of like, how do we capitalize on the name Han Solo? And going back to the Kevin Feige thing. By the way, they are, in terms of replacements, like they have his name has come up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, think about that. Like, he understands how to build this out, how to take minor characters, for crying out loud. Like, maybe, I don't know, some Legends characters that the fandom, that this male-centric fandom who has all these different rage that she calls really toxic and stuff.
That actually might be a good idea, is because Star Wars is actually in a very interesting position right now, because Marvel fatigue is real. It is legit. It's actually another reason why I think DC may finally have a chance to kind of steal some thunder, because I trust in James Gunn, right?
Yeah.
Like I think the Superman movie is going to be huge.
Really?
I think it's going to
Yeah.
be. Oh, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a $2 billion movie easily.
Dang.
I mean, he made over $700 million with each of the Guardians movies.
Yeah.
Peacemaker was so highly touted. The Suicide Squad. I mean, he's doing that. He did all that with, like, again, kind of like B-level,
right,
C-level characters. Now you're giving him the single most iconic superhero, or top 3 with Spider-Man and Batman for sure.
Right.
I mean, everyone knows that symbol. It's not like Superman is not the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Get chilled, bro.
I think the Superman movie is going to make $2 billion easily. So I think Marvel, as we've seen, Fatigue, the Captain America Falcon, movie, it didn't do particularly well. They're trying Fantastic Four again. That's like never worked.
Right.
So Star Wars is also sitting there.
Yeah.
Star Wars has a chance right now with Marvel Fatigue to be the next big blockbuster series that everybody wants to go see in theaters consistently.
Yeah, dude, they've got to bring it back. You're right. They got to capitalize on that moment and move forward with some really good content. And it's got to pull. You have to go back to the base of your of the fandom. You've got to figure out what the fandom wants. You've got to get your eyes and ears on that. You have to figure out what is going to fuel this. What's going to bring people back to the freaking theater to watch. I mean, if it is episode 10, 11 and 12 or whatever, like, go ahead, let's bring it on. But I'm telling you right now, if it's executed poorly again, there's this moment. This is the moment either where it goes all the way up and we can take it off and it just skyrockets and Star Wars is back, or it tanks and I think it's gone for good. I that's unfortunate until, I mean, maybe years, maybe we're, old men by the time they bring it back, but it's just like they have an opportunity, as you're saying, to who cares? Bring Kevin Feige in and do it. Everyone's talking about Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau and these guys, and I think they would be great. I think that's a thing. Those are legit candidates, and they do know Star Wars. But also bring a guy in who knows structure, like Marvel, and literally had all these different things, these cameos. They all seem kind of connected and everything, and they're building out like this Marvel universe. God dang, you have opportunities to do that, and instead of focusing on building out one of the time gaps in Star Wars, we're bouncing back and doing Acolyte. Why? Because our CEO got strong-armed by that creator, Leslie Headland, to do the show. I mean, that's a joke. That's a joke. So to me, yeah, you just got to bring in somebody strong who has a vision and knows who the creative minds are in Star Wars and says, we've got to make some deep cuts here. We actually have to really get down to the core, the mythos, take you back to something that is going to inspire us and really, not enrage us and get us all fired up and infighting, all this other bullcrap. Like, get us inspired again. And there's a chance. So
I also think that Star Wars needs to, and I think now is the best time to do it, is that Star Wars needs to stop timeline jumping. I think it's, I know it's part of it and it's something that hurts it because, well, we want to use this character, we want to use this character. And I think for the casual audience, the Star Wars timeline is a hurdle to jump into because you're always like, when does this take place? Like, what's going on?
Oh, I know.
Because you're always jumping. Well, we're going to jump before the prequels, or we're going to jump in between, and I feel like they would be better off focused on the Mandalorian timeline a couple years after Return of the Jedi. The sequels are like down the road.
30 years away.
In all honesty, I wouldn't even do a Rey movie. I wouldn't even touch it. I would just say maybe in like 10 years or something. Right. But right now, I would, if I were Star Wars, I would focus all of my energy on the Mandalorian timeline, because look at how much easier it is in Marvel to say we start with Iron Man and we go forward. Right.
Absolutely.
Yes, they had a couple prequels, like Captain America took place beforehand. And then you really I don't even think the next prequel movie was Captain Marvel. Right. That's all the way. I mean, there just weren't as many timeline jumping around. Where are we at? What's going on? Because look at Marvel now. Marvel is now suffering from that with the multiverse. It's like, hold on. It's so confusing to the casual audience. If you don't watch every single thing, then you're like, where is this at? What's going on? And it's an issue. So I think Star Wars should be like, we are focusing only on the Mando, Thrawn,
Dude,
Ahsoka
you're right.
timeline a few years after Return of the Jedi, and that's where we're just going to be for the next decade.
Yeah, you're absolutely freaking. I mean, 100%, dude. I think they should. This sucks because I like Daisy Ridley and I think she'd be cool to see her. It'd be cool to see her again. But unless you're going to freaking commit all of your resources there and like just push the Star Wars timeline forward, that's not the time to do it. You're in the middle of this gap filling moment where you have 25 years. That's a long freaking time, by the way. Luke Skywalker in Legends trained like almost like, I think it was like 14 students within a year. Within 1 year, he trained all these adult students, Mara Jade, Corran Horn, I mean, like Kip Duran, all of them. Like these are characters that he trained in 1 year and kind of jump started his academy. What the heck is Luke Skywalker doing, dragging his feet for 25 years and maybe scrounging together 5 students? That's a joke. Like you need to go take back Luke Skywalker, and he's a part of that timeline, and you could capitalize on him in a way that they never have. Bring Mark Hamill into the room. He's interested in coming back and advising on the Luke Skywalker role. They've already done some AI with him. They've already done some of that stuff, so he doesn't care. Bring him back. He likes being around it. I think he wants to redeem that character a little bit. And you have a moment versus Thrawn. They're going to shy. The only thing that's going to tick me off a little bit is they're going to shy away from the Luke Skywalker stuff, and it's just like you should lean into that and make this stronger and try to, capture that the same spirit. Like, what's the best moment we have had? Literally, the best moment we have had under Disney Lucasfilm is the return of Luke Skywalker.
100%.
That moment, I mean,
hands down.
God, it was so freaking sick. And it's again, what are the highlights was he in Book of Boba Fett? I think that's where we saw him again.
Yes.
It's like a little training thing.
With Grogu, yes.
Yeah, so that's the only thing that makes that. The only reason you go to Book of Boba Fett is to check that out. Unfortunately, they squandered the Boba Fett character. But still, that timeline, when you look at missteps, it has far fewer missteps in that little gap, right? Because the Mandoverse and the Mandalorian season 1, 2, and 3, even though 3 has been sort of whatever, it's doing better. It still makes sense. There might be slow moments. I talked to some guys at work. They're like, there's moments where it's kind of boring or whatever, but then, it's a slow sort of build. And Dave Filoni loves doing this thing. If you watch Rebels, season 1 is like, we've talked about this before. It's kind of slow, right? And
he loves these insane season finales.
Exactly. So he'll slow build it out. That's why I think Ahsoka on the live, like with a bigger audience and it's not animation. That's why I think you kind of feel the way you feel about Ahsoka, is because it's like he took that same mentality and really is slowly moving us to a big acceleration. And so it's like, well, sometimes when that first season, you might lose people and they might be kind of like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And so we'll see how that goes. But right now is the time, as you said, to focus on the Mandoverse and grow it out. You have over 20 years to figure out that. I mean, Rey's not born. Ben Solo, I mean, I forget how old he would be at this time. He's like 2 or something. So you have a chance for Luke to build out his academy, for Ahsoka to do something super cool. You still have options for Cal Kestis and all of his Jedi over on Tanalorr. Who knows what they do? Something bold. Do something bold, for crying out loud. When is the last time Star Wars was super bold and did something that was just going to, I mean, they're setting these things up and not executing.
And they're so afraid to use legacy characters. We've talked about this before too. Like it seems like they just have some mandate of like, no, we're not using Mara Jade. We're not touching Dash Rendar. We're not touching, obviously, they can't touch any of like the Solo kids because, from Legends, because they kind of morph them into other characters. But there's all this stuff that they could touch. Right. And for whatever reason, it seems like they have no interest in, or Star Killer or any of these characters that they just seem so like, nope, we don't even want to touch those characters.
And talk about decisions inside of Lucasfilm that are hurting them. Everyone wants to come in. I get it. Like when your authors come in, they want to bring a new character to life, and that's their kind of contribution to Star Wars or whatever. Dave Filoni already did that. So he made Ahsoka, right? When he first came into Star Wars, he was there with George making Ahsoka. And that was a little controversial, but then we grow to love Ahsoka over time. We're like, okay, you made a cool character that connected, that was there side by side with Anakin at a great time when George was there. So then we move along, and who's his new character later on? Ezra Bridger, Kanan Jarrus. Okay, we trusted him to go make some of those new characters, but who did he pair him with? What did he feel? What after he's already made his new character and stepped into Star Wars and had his chance to really leave an imprint and a legacy there? Who does he decide to bring back? Timothy Zahn's Thrawn. That is not Dave Filoni's character. That was made by Timothy Zahn. Timothy Zahn created that character in Legends, and George was like, everyone's sitting around like, this really got people going. This is 1992.
Yeah.
People are fired up about this guy. This is pretty creative and unique, and they let it run in Legends. It was all part of the expanded universe. So you're in the new canon timeline, and the boldest, one of the best things that they've ever done, best Legends character they ever brought back, was Thrawn. Now, look how successful that was. And they're like, well, yeah, but we can't bring back Mara Jade. We can't do Star Killer.
I know.
What are you talking about?
Dash Rendar.
Dash would be sick.
Who's that character from Empire at War? The Zan, right?
Oh yeah,
Tiber Zan.
Yeah, Tiber Zan, and then you've got Kyle Katarn.
Yeah.
Dude, Kyle Katarn. Like,
I know it does feel like they're just gonna get rid of Kyle Katarn and have Cal Kestis be Kyle Katarn.
Yeah.
Which sucks because they're so good and unique on their own that they should totally both exist.
They should totally both exist. Yeah. The cool thing with Legends was you came out of this time where Luke Skywalker was like, he had defeated Emperor Palpatine, and then he has to face Thrawn. He defeats Thrawn. Emperor Palpatine, the Emperor Reborn, kind of comes back. They do that sort of Palpatine Rise of Skywalker stuff a lot earlier, and it wasn't very popular, to be honest, in the fandom. Right. The Emperor Reborn stuff is kind of like, okay, but it happened. It was a part of Legends. Then Luke moves on, and he makes his academy, and it's all these freaking adults. They're all like over 18. They're all like experienced X-Wing pilots who like are force sensitive, always kind of were, but they needed that training and that cultivation. They needed to come to his academy and get some instruction, and then go out and be leaders. Continue with your veteran experience and do your thing. They almost have this misconception that everything has to be what he needs: a young, brand new student, Grogu, or a young child that he's going to grow, just like they did back in the prequel era. And you're like, no, this is a new Jedi Order. He could literally do whatever he wants, and he can make this. You know, he needs to get other Jedi out in the galaxy to help in this fight. And it's just nuts. I mean, Ezra Bridger, again, is someone who's not trained at the age of like 2 or 3, right? He's almost, he's a young adult by the time he takes on his training with Kanan Jarrus. And I just, like, they need to do more of that stuff to accelerate things and to get some other Jedi in play that are going to be cool. Because I go to this, if you're going to do the Rey Skywalker series, if you're going to go do that, and I love Daisy. I think it's a dumb name. I think she should be a Palpatine. I think it's bullcrap. I think she should be Rey Solo. She should be Rey Kenobi. She should actually be Luke Skywalker's daughter. If you're going to make her, I've actually seen people say that they'd be fine with her being Rey Palpatine, and she goes on to change the lineage of that name. Sick. That'd be freaking sick. How about you own that, and you're going to double down and say like, no, I'm going to. How about her father, who is a Palpatine, not her grandfather, but how about this guy Dathan Palpatine? Like, why the heck he sacrificed himself for you?
Do you even want to see his name? I mean, but seriously though, I mean, legitimately, do you really even want to see, like, if the Rey movie came out tomorrow?
I would be nervous.
Would you want to see it, or would you want to see the Mando movie that's coming out?
Mando movie, 100%.
Yeah, because the Mandalorian is awesome, and they created a great character. The two biggest successes, I mean, if I'll kind of lump them together, is like the Rogue One line of Rogue One and Andor,
yep,
and Mandalorian, and it's actually people who are not Jedi.
Exactly, that's true. Yep,
right.
Exactly.
It's these people who exist in the Star Wars universe, but kind of in the dark shadows and things like that, because we haven't seen it. And Mandalorian is just so fantastic.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially season 1 and 2. I mean, God, they were just phenomenal. I like season 3. I know some people didn't.
Yeah.
But
with it. Yeah.
But, you know, it's like, it's just because you can press start on either one of those, right? Because Andor leads into Rogue One. So at least you can press start and be like, all right, I can watch somewhat start to finish, and I don't have to understand all the other stuff that's going on, right?
Exactly.
I actually think that was a massive mistake in the Ahsoka show, because the Ahsoka show is basically Rebels season 6, right?
Yeah.
Or season 5.
Season
5, right? Yeah. Yep. It's basically Rebels season 5, but if you go into that having not seen the animated Rebel show, which a lot of people don't. A lot of people, you and I have seen it, and people who are willing to watch it, but there's a lot of people who are not willing to watch what they view as a cartoon. Even as good as Rebels is, there's a lot of fans who are just like, I'm not going to do it. And by making it really like Rebels season 5 and not like, oh, just the Ahsoka show.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally is like you press start at the end of Rebel season 4, jump right into it. The way the tone is going on, it assumes you know all of those things. And I thought that was a massive, terrible mistake of that show.
Yeah. I know that they tried to, like, you can see, because I bet you they thought the same thing. Like, this is really going to be tough. They still went ahead and did it, but they tried to bring Ahsoka, and they did bring Ahsoka into Mando first to like bring her back into this, like, you know, live action Ahsoka, which was a smart move because it does help a little bit. But as you said, the problem is not necessarily the character Ahsoka. It is like all the other characters around her, and Ezra Bridger is gone. And if you're just a casual fan kind of coming in and saying like, Ezra who? You know what I'm saying? Like, Thrawn? You know, you don't even know who he is. If you wanted, as they build this out, like right now, it seems like it's kind of forced, but for example, in Andor season 2, what if they had Thrawn live action? What if they went and did, because you don't see him until now later on. It just sort of is bizarre. Okay, there's a Grand Admiral Thrawn that like you don't even understand his significance because it's buried in Rebels and it's a cartoon, as you said. Hard to kind of get your casual fan to understand who that is. Now it's great that it's rich in lore, and that's a character that goes back to 1992, and a lot of the fandom know of the character. But again, like I always think of, you know,
not everyone does.
Yeah, exactly. Your mom or my sister or other people who would want to sit down and watch it, they'd be like kind of confused.
Right. Like when I watched with my wife, you know, Teresa, she doesn't watch that stuff. And my mom, you know, those are like I view those as like the real casual people, the people who just flip on, turn on whatever's on. Oh, cool, you know, and then they watch it, but they're not like diehard Star Wars fans. Same thing in Book of Boba Fett. Like, who's this guy? Cad Bane?
Right.
They didn't explain it. There was no backstory whatsoever. And that's something Marvel does, where Marvel does a lot of these cameos, but Marvel explains who these people are and why they're important. And Star Wars, for whatever reason, just assumes that only Star Wars fans watch the content.
And that's bad.
That goes back to Kathleen Kennedy saying, well, it's just racist man boy Star Wars fans that watch it. It's like, no, you have a lot of casual audience. In fact, the casual audience, right, is your lifeline. And if they're not confused, then you have a big problem. We don't care if you explain again to who somebody is. We know why they're important.
Yeah.
The other people need that explanation. And if you don't provide it, then it, even for us, it makes it feel like that was kind of, they didn't do a good job of introducing that character. And it feels like it suffers even more.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, like that was one of the issues they talk about why Solo sort of, you know, flopped or whatever. And again, it goes back to the timeline thing. They did pull upon a name that they knew, so they felt more comfortable about that. But then I remember going to the movies to see that, and we had some people along the way who stopped at a restaurant or whatever, and they just didn't understand. They're getting older. They didn't quite understand where it's at. Is this a new? Are they recasting? Are they redoing the Star Wars kind of thing? Yeah. There's too much confusion in Star Wars with the timeline jumping, as you've said, as like these characters and expecting everybody to know and to be up on the lore and all this kind of stuff. And then you're only playing to that Star Wars fan base that you call as toxic. And then we're sitting there going like, well, you're not even executing that very well. And we can't even tell our buddy at the water cooler about it because they're confused and they're like, I'm out because I have no idea what this is. So yeah, it's got a lot of hurdles and a lot of different things that you got to simplify it. Right? Like you're saying, you got to simplify.
Right. And I don't think any show exhibited that more than The Acolyte. Like The Acolyte being really Kathleen Kennedy's sort of final. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you know, Skeleton Crew came out afterwards and Andor's coming out and stuff like that. But I mean, I would say that The Acolyte sums up pretty much all of Star Wars problems that have existed. I mean, like if you could combine every issue that has existed in like this Star Wars project and this one along the tenure of Kathleen Kennedy, The Acolyte has all of those and they're all on display, right? Yeah. It tries to do way, way too much in one season. You and I've talked about that before. I mean, it's like they took 20 ideas that could each be its own season and said, we're going to cram it all into a handful of episodes. Yeah. Right. I mean, a show, you could literally do a show about twins separated at birth that like one's on this side of the Force and the other's on this side of the Force. Okay. Yeah. You could literally do a show that's based upon the group of space witches that can create life. okay, like that's kind of cool. The master and the apprentice who left the order and is coming back, all the Plagueis as a thing. Those are all like individual. Some of those are even individual show ideas, let alone cramming it all into one season without taking time to explain why things are important or why things matter or the significance that it would in theory have on the bigger aspects of Star Wars itself. And then they just throw away things. The cameos they bring in, it's not even like Marvel. Like at least when Marvel does a cameo, it's like at the very end to be like, okay, here's your end credit scene. This guy's going to be important later, right? When Star Wars did it, it's like, here's Ki-Adi-Mundi talking about this thing, and it's like you pick like
the most
he didn't feel significant. He felt like he was there, and it was something that retcons and throws the entire system into whack.
Yeah, the crazy thing. Okay, right. That's a good example. The Ki-Adi-Mundi reference is meant to like, oh, this is a cool Easter egg for like those fans that are a part of that, that toxic fan base. We're going to throw them a bone here and put Ki-Adi-Mundi in there. And then you show you don't understand the fandom by choosing Ki-Adi-Mundi to be the one who knows about the Sith, which contradicts his line later on, that like the Sith have been extinct for a millennia. And here he is over here, like investigating the Sith. You know what I mean? So you tried to throw us a bone. You don't understand the fandom. And then you point at the fandom and say, you're toxic because you didn't get the Ki-Adi. We tried to give you the Ki-Adi-Mundi reference. You guys are still ticked about it. And you're like, that's because it conflicts with what's going on in freaking Phantom Menace, dude.
They should have just went to him like, hey, I'm having an issue. And he's like, well, have you looked in, have you meditated on it or something?
Yeah.
Like, something that would be kind of cool. Be like, oh, they talked to him about it and be like, well, did he know that they were talking about the Sith? Well, he must not have, because in episode 1, he says the Sith haven't been around. So he didn't know exactly what it is that they were talking about. Like that would have been a cool way to do it.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
Because then it creates this kind of cool, like fun Star Wars loophole for us to be like, well, he didn't actually know that they were talking about the Sith being back.
Yeah.
As opposed to him then basically just flat out being like, hey, the Sith are back. And then he says later that the Sith have been gone. So
exactly. It's so that's a good point. He could have been in a room training younglings. We could have walked by and seen him in the background or whatever. But to have, it's almost like it was an insult. It was actually, I think they knew it was going to irritate the fan base, and it was their way. Anyway. It's a plant. They did it in there. It's a trap. It's a freaking trap.
It's a trap.
And that's what they wanted to bait people into. Be like, see, there they go again. There's that toxic fan base. They are going crazy about Ki-Adi-Mundi, and it's like, no, you didn't think that was going to piss people off like that. How did you not think that? How did you not foresee that happening? It tells you that you're out of touch a little bit with the fan base there. And it's super, unless you're gonna build out other things where you're gonna explain that like Yoda, Mace, and Ki-Adi-Mundi are all like lying to the rest of the order and there's some deeper freaking secrets and you're gonna like go explore that and that's your eventual plan, but then it's canceled.
Yeah.
So now it just looks like you had no plan. There's nothing going to be executed beyond that. And so like you show Plagueis and you waste a moment. You waste a moment of showing Plagueis. We'll never see him again. Right? We're never going to have it again because you went out there and there's no follow through, man. There's no commitment. So that sucks. It just sucks.
So anyway. what do you think is worse? The way the sequels rolled out. I mean, if like just from like, because we don't know, she's saying that she's retiring, but we don't know that she's also not being kind of kicked out. Do you think it's more she's getting kicked out, or do you think she's leaving on her own terms, or maybe her contract was up and they're just being like, they're both just kind of like, all right, let's do something else?
I think it
has been a long time.
It's been a long time. I think it's a combination. One of the conspiracy theories out there is that she has dirt on all of these Hollywood dudes, and that's kept her from back in the 70s and 80s, and because she's produced a lot of great hits, she's been in there with George Lucas, Steven Spielberg. She's been a great movie producer, and it's sort of like how as a company have they looked at her performance and been like, yes, Kathy is leading this company we're doing really well, and Bob's looking at it going, you know what, look at those numbers, look at the response. And he has, as you said, a comparison to Marvel. He can look at two different companies there and say, this one's doing really well. Marvel's doing great, was kicking off, going crazy. And he can look over at Lucasfilm and go, it doesn't seem like there's more wrong than there is right. And for her to kind of continue on, it feels like, I don't know. I don't know what they why there wasn't a change. It feels like in another company, they would have just said, all right, sorry, got to go. And we need to bring in some new life here. We need to change things up and figure it out. So I do think that she's had an unnatural kind of almost like Emperor Palpatine hold on Lucasfilm. Like, I think for some reason she's had that. I do know that George, like, he does pick her, right? And he does want her to execute sort of his vision, but immediately
people, I think people forget how much kind of a sway actually Lucas might have on Disney.
Yeah, man. I mean,
because he owns a very large amount of stock in that company because he took almost all that money as stock when they bought it.
Right.
And so he owns enough shares to have a little bit of sway in that company.
Which is why I think he says what he wants to say. I think he could just, when he's out there,
look at how involved he is. I don't think it's just that. I don't think George Lucas is just involved at Star Wars. Like, oh, George came in and stuff like that. It's like, no, George is also a very large shareholder in the company, and
for sure
he gets his dividend checks too. You know,
right? Oh, for sure. And that's where I'm thinking. Like, you were asking the question: is she being forced out, or is she leaving of her own sort of accord? And I think it's a combination of both. I think somebody did come to her and say, "Hey, what's your exit plan?" Because she's been there 13 years or something.
13, 14 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and we need to be. You don't want to just give into there is a toxic portion of the fan base that is like has been calling for her exit since the sequels and stuff like that. I was willing to kind of see, what else can you do? What else can you bring to the table? And again, after Acolyte, it's like even before that, there was plenty of reason to kind of say we need to move in a different direction, and we need different creatives. And that's her job is to sort of corral the story group and the different directives and the creative minds in Star Wars and get this channeling in the right direction. And then instead it was a blame game. It was a point the finger game. There's tons of articles that come out and that talk about the issues the actors are having. It's hard to be a female director. It's hard to, do all these different things. Is it that hard? And other people are doing it, and their fandoms actually go back much further. They're comic book fans, dude. They're freaking people, they're nerds, just like us who grew up reading and loving those things. And so that I'm trying to figure out what the major freaking difference is there. Anyway, all that to say, I think she has been asked to come up with a strategy. And I think that was over a year ago. And I think they were letting her run some projects. And I think after Acolyte, I think because the rumor was she was going to retire last year. And when she didn't, it was like, okay, she had some other projects on the table she wanted to see through. One of them was Acolyte. And she said, I think at Star Wars Celebration or different places, she was the most excited for that. And it is the biggest, hardest flop we have ever seen under her leadership.
I think it's one of the biggest Disney. I would say it's even one of the biggest Disney Plus flops, like not even just Star Wars.
It's laughable. I mean, you can say, well, look at the numbers, but it's laughable, man. Like it just, so many people had so many different issues with it. And it just didn't fit. And it didn't fit in the fandom, and it felt wrong. It felt like so off base. And then you're like, that's her thing. That's what she was pushing. And I think after that, Bob Iger and others came to her and said, okay, what's the exit plan? We need one. And we need to start thinking about a different direction because it's not working. We need to get everybody, rallied and moving in the right direction. Also, even in building out the Mandoverse, Matt, why are we having, when you look at Marvel and you look at how quickly when they started with Iron Man and they started moving and getting things going, it seemed like they had this steady sort of like, okay, we're building up, and then stuff started just rolling out. There was this Marvel, all the different characters were coming together, a lot of cohesion, a lot of really good leadership in terms of like, there's these cameos, crossovers, and you look at the Mandoverse and you think, okay, I expected it to come out even faster. We had, what's the thing called that they use, the big screen that they have? I forget what it's called. Yeah. Or no, the, oh gosh, where they film
the volume.
The volume. Yeah. So they have the volume, right, to make things go even more quickly and more efficiently, and we should be churning out content there. And instead, our resources are being dedicated to the Acolyte, or they're being dedicated to let's figure out a Rey movie, like and then as we go back into some of the stuff with like Kenobi, you just look at the money and where things are allocated and resources, and it's spread all over the place. And that's why we're having so much trouble moving forward and actually just everyone working together. Imagine if all of Lucasfilm just came together and said, single-minded focus, We are going to build out the most baller Mandoverse here. We're going to do everything we can with Luke Skywalker, Mara Jade. We're going to bring back some different things. We're going to have a vision. Let's sit down. Let's take a year off, bring every mind we have in here, and honest to God, build out something cohesive that makes sense, even if you have to, and unfortunately you have to kind of drive towards Palpatine's freaking return. Even if you have to do that, make it work, make it sick, and go at it. Why they haven't been doing that, why they're jumping all over the different galaxy and bringing these other tons of different minds, it's crazy. People wanted that gap filled, and they wanted you have ripe Star Wars content, ripe Legends characters that you can go in and focus on and get after it. And instead, we're like, oh, this person pitches something to Kathleen Kennedy, and okay, cool, we're going to run with that. It's got a strong female character, blah, blah, blah. It's got all the different, it checks all the boxes politically and everything. And so, boom, let's go. And I don't even care if you check political boxes, just work cohesively together on something that makes sense and follow through on your promises. You know, the amount of stuff that we've been promised and then let down on is kind of crazy. And then remember the stage where it was like, here are all the Star Wars projects that we're doing, and it's like,
oh yeah,
like
Celebration
stuff. Yeah, and you're like, oh my god.
Rangers
like,
of the New Republic.
There's like 16 things. Yeah, you're like, holy smokes, right? And then it all gets derailed. Come on, that's a part of your leadership. That's a part of your tenure.
Well, and Marvel has also faced derailment, right? I mean, they thought Jonathan Majors was going to be Kang for all this stuff, right? Then he had some I think it was like domestic violence or something. Right. Okay, we'll pivot, right? So anyway, so while you're talking there, I was pulling up. So since 2014, which is when she took over Star Wars, right? Yep. So it came out in 2015, The Force Awakens. So let's even say that. So even since 2015, Star Wars has released 5 movies, right? The 3 and then 2, the Rogue One and Solo. That's it. Right. 5 movies in 14 years. Marvel has released almost 25. Like there's 34 going up to 2029. There's like 35 Marvel movies that are planned. Like Blade is having some issues, but like Secret Wars, Doomsday, Fantastic Four, all that stuff's like, we know it's legit coming, right?
Yeah.
But even since then, and so when you look at like how much money each one makes, there's no reason whatsoever that Star Wars should not be making as much money as Marvel. And you know that it's not. Like we don't have the exact numbers, but I can just pull up. Here's global box office. We'll even just start at 2015, right?
Yeah.
Age of Ultron, 1.3 million. Ant-Man, 500 million. Civil War, 1.1 billion, 1.3 billion.
Yeah.
Right. Then Guardians 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok are all 800 million. Black Panther, 1.3, Infinity War, 2. Captain Marvel made $1 billion. Endgame made almost 3. Far From Home made $1 billion. No Way Home made $1 billion right before. No Way Home made almost $2 billion in 2021. So after the pandemic. So it's not even like you can say that. Deadpool made 1.3 billion, and the box office is still in recovery, right? It's the global domestic box office numbers have not hit what haven't even come close yet to completely returning to what they were pre COVID. But in that same time, it's like you've released 4 or 5 movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. It's the money's not even close. So as a brand, they expect that you should be doing the same thing, right? I mean, you can't tell me that Star Wars can't make as much money as Marvel.
Right. Well, why can't they get that together? Why haven't we had even like half? Why not even half that number of movies? Right.
They've announced them and they've been in development. So what I want to know that number too is how much money in R&D or in development of these Star Wars movies and things like that has gone in, and the return has not been nearly as successful.
Dude, everything about their whole response has been like, okay, we're going to move forward with they went out light speed and they're making the sequels and stuff, and then they're like, okay, full stop, like we got to slow down, right? Solo tanked us, and like bring Rise of Skywalker back, and then Rogue One was the only really big hit that we had. I mean, Force Awakens, obviously they all made money and stuff, right? Except for Solo. And so all of a sudden, you also still too have that money metric where it's like they all made money. Why did you stop? What's what's going on? You know, you want to double down on your thing. It's like, yes, we all know the reason, which is that you had major missteps and backlash from the sequels. And so you fumbled that, and the trust wasn't there from the fandom. And then you started to get on your heels a little bit and start to say, well, I think we've realized we can't make as, we don't want to oversaturate Star Wars. We don't want to whatever. And no, we just want good Star Wars,
Right. Yeah, there hasn't been a movie since 2019. December 20th, 2019 was the last Star Wars movie, which was Rise of Skywalker, which even though it got criticized by fans, it still made money.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's not like at the box office it was bad.
See, yeah, Star Wars can recover. It can actually come back. You can go to the box office. You can release movies. You can get people back, because those casual fans that we were talking about earlier, they're going to come to the movie theater. They want a chance to get out of the house. They want to go sit in the theater. People want to get back to that. They want you to bring them to the movie theater, and they want you to explain it, make it simple. They don't want to have watched all the Disney Plus stuff or all the animated series. That's for your super fan base, right? So come out and make something that literally brings us all together. It's possible. Marvel is doing it. Other places are doing it. You can do it. You have a rich lore, rich history. You have a cool fan base that does enjoy this stuff, and it's growing. And we want those legacy members of the fandom. They want to talk to other people about cool stuff. They want to be able to kind of like share their knowledge and stuff. So it's just, yeah, you're right. 2019, that's crazy. That's crazy.
And the other thing is, so even Marvel has had missteps, right? Like, okay, it really didn't have a misstep like at all until like post pandemic. But I mean, I think you can look at some and you would say, wow, I would expect that to do better, right? So, like even in 2021, when you're talking, people are still wearing masks to movie theaters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Black Widow, budget of 200 million. Got 379, and that was, remember when like movies were coming out like either at the same time. Remember they did that for a little bit, like, or so you could just watch it for free. Well, not for free, but on Disney Plus. So then like Eternals, okay, it only made 400 million. No Way Home, 1.9 billion, but that was like a thing. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse, 952 million. Thor, Love and Thunder, and that was a bad movie. The movie sucked, and it was 760 million. Black Panther 2, Ant-Man. Even with the Jonathan Majors like domestic violence stuff going on at the same time, it still made twice its budget. Guardians 3, 854. The Marvels had a big loss, actually. 270 million was its budget. It only made 200 million. And I actually think Brave New World, the new Captain America movie, well, it's over its budget, but I think it's going to be way less than what they expected. But they still continue on. Is what I'm trying to get at, is Marvel has like, they've had like She-Hulk was not particularly great, and they've had shows even in their streaming that have kind of hit and flopped, a lot since after Endgame, but it still continues on, and it still just keeps churning out and doesn't have these stutters where Star Wars, it's like, man, they get rocked once and it's like a prize fight, right? I mean, it's just like, you're there and you're going good, and you get hit and you keep going. Sometimes people get hit in the face and they've never felt it before, and now they're in trouble.
Yeah, for sure. They can't recover from a quick jab. They can't recover from any of these, like small missteps. And here's why. Here's why Star Wars has trouble recovering from any misstep that they make. It's because when they came out with The Force Awakens, literally Rey looks over at the Millennium Falcon and declares it to be garbage. And then later on, she says, the garbage will do. Let me tell you, that sends a message loud and clear as to what you're kind of, it's supposed to be kind of a joke or whatever, but that's actually how you treated what was already pre-established. That's how you treated the legacy characters. You treated them as garbage, and you tanked them. You did not. Mark Hamill always shows that image on Twitter or wherever it is, social media, where it's like him, Carrie and Harrison all in the Millennium Falcon. The piece of garbage that you declared, it'll do, but it's garbage. He sees them as like being in there. Like it's such a missed opportunity. And so the reason you can't recover is because you insulted the Millennium Falcon to start the whole daggone thing off. You literally didn't understand it out the gate. And so, yeah, that's a problem. And so we don't trust you anymore. So we're not going to go buy your product because you haven't shown us that you respected what was there before. So what's up? I mean, there's a ton of different things. And then they have infighting, right? All of a sudden you have literally digs being thrown back and forth between JJ's Rise of Skywalker film and Rian Johnson. Guys, come on, we are not stupid. Like when Luke catches the lightsaber and is just like, this is a weapon that deserves respect, and like Rian Johnson throws it over the shoulder and just disregards it. Like, we're not stupid.
And that goes to what I was kind of saying too, is it's like when Marvel has a misstep, they just keep firing. Okay, well, we'll just keep on plugging away and keep firing away, right? Some studios and stuff like that, they freak out. I mean, look what happened with DC, right? I mean, DC, it's like, man, Batman vs Superman didn't do as good as they thought. We need to totally shift gears and go in a totally different direction. And then Justice League came out, and boom, that was bad. And Zack Snyder kind of left, and then we get to see his version, and it's much better. And then they did Aquaman, and it was just like it totally derailed the whole thing. Terrible. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Fantastic Beasts and Harry Potter, right? It's just like, oh wow, this is trash. We gotta do something different, and go in a different direction. But Marvel's able to figure it out and keep going. So I guess I just don't. For me, that's my thing. Is when you look at who's in charge and you look at Kathleen Kennedy's legacy. Well, they do all these big, huge knee-jerk reaction with the movies every time something goes wrong, because she doesn't know how to take criticism. Because every time she does take criticism, or Star Wars gets blown, criticism from fans, it's, well, you're the problem, not us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
You point fingers at everybody. How can you expect to run a movie studio?
Yeah, it's a joke,
and that doesn't mean that people aren't gonna like. Yeah, she like Rogue One it was the best Disney Star Wars movie. It's not even close. None of the sequels come remotely close to Rogue One. So it is possible, right? Mm-hmm. To do it. It does happen. So right. I don't understand the issue.
Right. Yeah. No, you're exactly. Yeah. It's crazy. And one of the issues right here is a line that they did in the sequels. You called here's what they did. So in the sequels, they call the Millennium Falcon junk. Then they go on in the next film to say over and over, let the past die, kill it if you have to. There's all these little tiny like little digs about like the former franchise and like this is new and this is this new way, and then it's freaking fumbled. Like it's laughable. Like you came out and kind of crapped on legacy characters and did these little digs inside of your movie, and then you expect the fandom to just be like, yes, feed us whatever you want, we're gonna go with it, and it's bad. There's an article I have pulled up here real quick, the Hollywood Reporter, just some stuff that they kind of noted here. So after buying Lucasfilm from George Lucas in 2012, Disney relaunched Star Wars as a franchise trilogy in 2015 with director J.J. Abrams' The Force Awakens. The film was an absolute blockbuster, yet surprisingly, and as it turns out, problematically, the studio did not have a firm creative plan for the next two films, at least not one that was followed. Rian Johnson's 2017 sequel, The Last Jedi, took the story in a different direction that many loved and many did not. Then Abrams returned in 2019, The Rise of Skywalker, and tried to push the narrative closer to his original intentions. Comedians learn in improv class to always say yes and to any idea introduced during a show, no matter how challenging. The studio and Abrams' reaction to The Last Jedi was more like, no, actually. And that's true. Like Rey is nobody to Rey is a Palpatine, right? So they just this total back and forth. The result was a trilogy that is mismatched of dueling creative vision and so on. And then it goes down here to mention, as you were talking about Marvel, the film's box office also told a story. At a time when Disney's Marvel movies kept breaking new ticket sales records, The Force Awakens made an extraordinary $2 billion worldwide. Jedi then dropped sharply to a still huge $1.3 billion, and then Skywalker made $1 billion, which is still $1 billion, right? And there's these incredible numbers they are incredible numbers, and we just mentioned all of that, right? So and then around this time, you have the studio experimented with two standalone films. There's the 2016 gorgeous-looking and compelling Rogue One, earning $1 billion, a film whose reputation has improved since its release. It just continues to get better, and or is making it better. And 2018 widely panned Solo, which made a disastrous for the franchise $393 million. A film whose reputation has not improved since it was released. I think it actually has improved. I think it has too. So I disagree with that. But both have behind-the-scenes drama and reshoots that saw their original directors being replaced during filming. After Rise of Skywalker, Disney paused making big-screen Star Wars movies altogether, but continued to announce new films in development from top creatives. The list of well-known writers and directives who have come and gone is comically long. And we've talked about this. It's Rian Johnson. It's Dan and Dave. It's Patty Jenkins, Colin Trevorrow. Gosh, I mean, they go on. They've got Del Toro on here, and it's just crazy. Even Kevin Feige, right, was listed as somebody who might start working in there. So it seems like it's just been chaotic.
Who do you think should take over?
Who do I think should take over for Kathleen Kennedy?
Yeah.
Dang, dude,
I think it should be Jon Favreau.
I think it should be Jon Favreau too. I was just about to say, here's why. Because
I think he should get it over Dave Filoni.
That's true. I think so too. Dave Filoni is a super creative story guy. He is very involved with the story. He understands the mythos. I think he should be your number 2 guy. I think he should be the number 2 guy. People should be approving projects. He should have literal more say in terms of like what's greenlit, like free him up a little bit. Right now he's in the midst of writing his story. He's occupied with actual story creation, right? And continuing like his story. We got to see that story through, get Dave Filoni done with his stuff, put him at number 2 under Jon Favreau, and have him, start to see a vision forward.
Yeah, because Favreau seems way more like the CEO type than Dave Filoni. And some guys they're just ultra creatives. Like one of a director I really love to I've kind of been following, and I'll tell you what, if I were Disney, I would throw a blank check at this guy and be like, I know you probably can't do anything until like 2028, 2029. Is Dennis Villeneuve, right? Who's the guy who does Dune, the Dune movies.
Yeah.
Because he's like Dune is like his baby. That's all he's ever wanted to do in his whole entire life. And he's like, I have to turn everything else down because I want to make like the single best movie I possibly can. It's like his like lifelong dream. But he's going to be doing Dune 3, and I think they're going to kind of cram like 2 books together. I think they're going to kind of do Children of Dune and what's the one that comes after Dune? God. Anyway, it's blank. It's on my mind. Can't think of it right now. But after that, I don't know that he's going to do a 4th movie, which they could go into some other stuff. The kind of online rumor right now is that some Game of Thrones movies have been teased and announced, and one of them being Aegon's Conquest, and he's already in at Warner Brothers, which would be insane. And I really hope he gets it, because he's like so phenomenal of a director.
Yeah.
But if I'm Disney, and I don't know if he has like some exclusive contract with Warner Brothers or what the deal is,
right?
But I would throw a blank check at that guy and say, we want you to come do any Star Wars thing you want to do. Now, you and I have also Dave Filoni should be involved too, whatever. I mean, if they decided they just want to keep the timeline doing whatever, I would let him make the KOTOR movies, like have at it.
Oh my God. Yeah, dude.
Insane, right? It would just be, it would be utterly insane. But I bring all that stuff up because it's like I don't know that he'd be like a CEO. I was really shocked actually when DC brought in James Gunn, because I didn't know that he was like a CEO type guy, right? And DC is run by 2 people because it's so big, but so is Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars is more than just movies. It's comics and clothes and action figures and all licensing stuff all everywhere. So maybe they just let them both run it.
Dude, yeah, for sure. Like divide and conquer a little bit, and it is getting bigger. One thing that Kathy said is that like it has grown since she started there. Like you've expanded with games and different. There's other things to it. There's books, and it has grown from just the movies. I mean, actually, it looks like it's grown to the point where she's stopped making movies and then bounced into streaming.
But George Lucas did that too, but I think he more just kind of signed off on stuff. I was like, sure, because it was like free for all.
Right. Yeah, and he had in his mind that can just be its own sort of timeline thing or whatever. And that's it. Yeah, it's definitely, I think you're right though. I think Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau leading that, and then bringing in a guy who's like the director from the Dune movies and really letting him have KOTOR, that would be insane, dude. Like, because imagine, let me bring up something that's really interesting. Why, answer me this, Matt. Why did Disney Lucasfilm decide to do The Acolyte and not Revan and KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic? Why did they not do that? I'm really glad they didn't, because if it would have looked anything like The Acolyte, I think people would be even further out. And maybe they sort of know that, hey, we're not ready to take on something like that. Clearly you're not. And so, but it's interesting that they're not even, I would just love to be a fly on the wall and wonder, are they thinking about Darth Revan? Has that ever come up? Are they thinking about doing anything with that timeline and making?
Maybe it's too far away and they want it to be connected. Like that's why they did High Republic, because like Yoda's still there.
Right. Yeah, they're trying to keep people, but that's the thing. They then mentioned the James Mangold movie, the Dawn of the Jedi, right, sort of thing. So they're willing to go back there and start off, and maybe that's what they're doing.
Movie looked like it was like Stone Age or something.
Dude,
the logo. Who knows?
Who freaking knows? That's gonna be a joke, probably. I hate to say that, but it's probably gonna be a joke. But yeah, maybe they're starting with the Dawn of the Jedi, and they're gonna work towards KOTOR or something. But dude, the fact that you're not drawing upon some of that Legends material and going out and making that, like having a Sith Empire. Holy smokes, dude. Like actually having one and not some like Palpatine makes one and conjured, there's all these ships out of Rise of Skywalker is a joke. I mean, how did all that stuff, show up on Exegol? It's crazy. It's not believable. But like going back and putting us in like an actual council of dark Sith lords, like on Korriban or something, and then like there's this fighting with this Jedi Council, put us back where Master Yoda set, like take us back to Coruscant and have the Jedi Council working against the Sith Council or something. Why are we not doing that kind of stuff? It's just, it's mind-boggling that we're wasting time and resources on the things like either the Rey Skywalker series or the Acolyte. It doesn't seem, I don't know. They know where
doesn't make
money.
Sense.
There's money. Yeah. If you want to make money, there's money there and it can be made.
Instead, they try to make a freaking $10,000 a night Star Cruiser Disney Plus.
Flop.
Did you see that thing? It's like some Disney, Star Wars, get the Star Wars, but it's like not even like a specific thing. It's just like generic. Like this is what Star Wars would be if there was a Star Wars cruise you could go on in the unit, and it's like $5,000 a night, and it lasted like 3 weeks. So it was terrible.
Dude. It's it's bad. There's just bad decisions, and we need new leadership. End of the day,
and then another thing too, and we can end it here, but like Visions. Right? I mean, Visions, they literally said, let's just let people create all these ideas. It's free advertising and free whatever, because you just toss it out and let them do whatever they want. And all the hardcore fans who are the only ones watching it are online saying, well, this one's pretty cool. Like, I want to see more of that. Like, remember like the Ninth Jedi, or there was another one everyone really loved. That was like the black and white, and it was like samurai. And then like all of that, we were like, so many of them were like, we don't like this one, we do like this one. And literally just giving you ideas of like, this would be a cool story to explore. Fans are saying, here's a new thing you could do in Star Wars, and we'd watch it, and nothing, no capitalization on it. That is wild. Yeah, because that one, the Ninth Jedi or whatever, was so freaking sick. I was like, dude, so flash forward. Instead we're gonna do the High Republic.
Yeah, dude, it's
I don't see any Star Wars content creators talking about it, by the way.
No, dude.
Like
by
Star
the way,
Wars theory, none of those people are like hardcore into the High Republic.
No, it's not cool. And it's just like it could be cool if you did something like if you set up and you went back to characters that we know and love, and you were doing Basilishan, you were doing Revan, and then you had some of their descendants showing up in High Republic, and you're building off of those things. Instead, this is what I mean, dude, is that they want these creatives to come in, and they have to have their creative stamp. They have to be able to say, I'm making a brand new character in Star Wars, and here's where we're going to go with it, and blah, blah, blah. And they're squandering a lot of opportunities with legacy characters. They just don't like them. They don't like that somebody else made them. They don't like that they weren't involved in that decision.
They want it to be theirs.
And they want it to be theirs. And so I'm not going to do that. We're not going to feature them. Whereas, like I said earlier, when Dave Filoni, he had his moment with George, they make Ahsoka, develop that character. Now I can bring a Legends character in. Cool. But these other creatives are not staying in Star Wars long enough to even do that. Hey, let me quickly get in there and make my Master Soul character and all these other characters, and cast my wife, as this awesome Jedi, and kind of, go from there. And then I'm going to bounce. I mean, obviously, she wanted to come back for maybe another season or something, but it just feels, there's no follow through, there's no vision, and you're not seeing things through. And like you said, there's been plenty of data out there. You can get a sort of sense and a pulse from the fandom and figure out what they like and what they want. The fact that we've not done something with Dash Rendar is also ridiculous. Those things are just
Kyle Katarn.
It's dumb. Well, we can't do that. That's so. Bring the author who wrote. Bring those people back. Those creatives.
Right? Why not?
Yeah. Why not bring them back? And it's just like they've got their own people.
And on the flip side, Marvel's like, hey, Marvel took Guardians of the Galaxy, which again, You go back to like the 2000s before the MCU exists, right? Like even Iron Man, to be fair, was not like a top tier A plus character in the early 2000s, right?
That's
If you
true.
walked up to 10 people on the street and you asked them, name me 10 superheroes. It doesn't even have to be like Marvel or DC. You just say, name me 10 superheroes. Iron Man would appear a couple times, but he wouldn't. I can't
Most
imagine
of the time,
that he would appear like 100% of the time if you go up and ask people now.
Agreed.
Let alone like Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy,
Oh, yeah.
Shang-Chi. Okay, some of these characters, right? And Marvel has no problem doing it. It makes no sense that Disney's unwilling to use Mara Jade, unwilling to use Kyle Katarn, unwilling to use these. I do not get it. I don't understand it.
Let me ask you a question. So why is Marvel so successful? They have all this lore, all these different comic book characters, and they were on comic book pages or there's been TV shows, and they said, let's make movies about those characters. They already exist. We're not making up brand new characters. These characters actually existed historically in this Marvel fandom. Let's go ahead and make those. And then you come into Star Wars, and as you're saying, you then see all these characters that show up in comics, that show up in Legends books, and we're not making them. Why? Why not? Why would you not come into the fandom and make the characters that already exist?
I think a perfect parallel between the state of Star Wars right now and the state of Marvel, like when you look at everything, because again, it's just so mind-boggling that both exist under the same Disney umbrella and they could not be managed differently, right? One is ultra successful, the other is kind of somewhat sometimes successful. Is what it's been since Disney bought Star Wars. I think the perfect kind of correlation is, let's take Marvel Rivals, right? The big new video game that's freaking awesome that tons of people are playing online, the big free to play, like it's like Overwatch, and they kind of did the same thing too with Star Wars, and they made Star Wars Hunters. And in Marvel Rivals, the whole thing about the game that's awesome is that you get to play all of the different characters. Oh, I want to play as Iron Man. I want to play as Spider-Man. I want to play as Captain America. I want to play as Magneto, Wolverine. Even like some, kind of more like side, not side characters, but like less of the big hitter characters like Cloak and Dagger, right? Or Squirrel Girl is in the game. Okay. And in Star Wars Hunters, you don't even get to play as any licensed character whatsoever. It's so stupid. They're like, oh, we're going to make like a new Sith nobody's ever played as. We're going to give you like some random droid and some random bounty hunter that like we just made up for this game.
Yeah.
Why? Like, you're telling me that you couldn't do the same thing with Marvel Rivals with that you could do with Star Wars?
Yeah.
Exactly, where I could play as like Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader and Han Solo, like droids, clone troopers, Palpatine, it's clearly something to do somewhere where they are just either too protective of their characters, or I don't know what it is. But it makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. It's like, again, it goes back to like, we have to have our stamp and make our own, really just brand new, unique character, and we can't bring in things that already existed before. And so it's like, we're fine. You can blend the two. That's literally what they did in Rebels with Thrawn and other characters in that time period. They took that time period of the rebellion, and they had brand new characters. They brought in Ahsoka, who was their legacy character at that time. Yeah, dude, there's just so many opportunities that are being squandered. It's ridiculous, because I don't know if creatives are coming in saying like, no, I have to like be able to make something that's brand new in Star Wars and it's going to stand alone and be this new epic thing. That's not how you do it. You're not honoring what's already there before. It just feels so contrived. I don't know. But one more thing, just before we wrap up here.
Yeah.
I've been noticing something, and I've been thinking about this a lot in terms of Star Wars. I don't know why, since Disney has taken over, it seems like they have this, and I'm all for adoption and adopting kids and everything, but they seem to be very much against like a traditional sort of like bloodline. They do. They seem to be totally against it. The Solo bloodline has been killed off. The Skywalker bloodline has been killed off. It's been Rey adopts the Skywalker name. Grogu is adopted, right, by Din Djarin. Freaking sick. I'm not saying these theories are bad or whatever. It's just interesting. Andor himself is adopted. Solo didn't even, he has no like he didn't inherit the name Solo. He's given it by an Imperial officer, which I thought was, so when you start to add all these different things up, you're sort of like the Solo bloodline that was there. I go back to this idea of like the Millennium Falcon is garbage. Let the past die. And they're like, okay, yeah, let's kill off the Solo bloodline. Let's kill off the Skywalker bloodline. And those are two of the biggest sort of like names in Star Wars. And I think they got to the Rise of Skywalker and like, are we really leaving no path forward to continue the Solo bloodline or the Skywalker bloodline? And that's why they said, we got to have Rey take the name Skywalker, because we've squandered this. We've squandered a really cool name, Skywalker, and there's no one to inherit it or take it on. What's their plan to continue that? And why was Legends sort of so cool at the end of it? Because you have Jaina Solo. You have this like character that's beloved in Legends that like her father is Han, and it's her father's Han Solo, and she is like this Jedi Knight. And then you have Ben Skywalker, who is carrying on the Skywalker name and legacy. And I get that they're like, well, Jedi can't do that. We can't have Master Skywalker having kids. You could. You did it in Legends. There's a way to do it in Mara Jade. I always come back to this. But it's like also with the Solo bloodline, you did it too. You squandered it. You take a really cool name and you just totally squander it. And it's shocking. There's no story on Finn. Finn, his parents, who is he? Lando's daughter, is that his daughter? There's just, it seems like this whole day, this idea of keeping a surname or like a last name in this heritage is out. What was so significant about the trilogy, the original trilogy, is that this is Luke Skywalker and his father was Anakin Skywalker. And then you go back and you find out they were actually slaves. And Shmi Skywalker is at the start of this bloodline. This strong woman who took care of her son. She literally raises him correctly. And they he's the chosen one. She sees that this is Shmi Skywalker's legacy. And Disney said, don't care about you, Shmi. And we're going to go ahead and just end this bloodline. We're done with it. How, bro? How do you end the chosen one's bloodline? Why would that not be a cool story element to carry through? The chosen one's bloodline 500 years into the future after Master Skywalker has passed away. You pick up with a Cade Skywalker or someone, and they just basically said the potential for that, let's throw it in the trash. It's garbage. That is the biggest misstep.
I'll tell you why I think this is the case.
Yeah.
My guess would be, and this I don't know, because there's other instances where it's not the case, but my guess would be is then it opens it up to the idea, well, anyone can be a hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone can be a Jedi, which is something they're clearly about now. Anyone can be a Jedi. Anyone can be a hero, I think is what they're potentially going. You're not tied to some magic bloodline or anything, which is a lot of Disney in general. I mean, Disney does have princesses that are, whatever, but even then it's still always like, it's always I mean, you look at all the Disney stuff, it's always like the character you least expect is the one who is the one who saves the day. Like even Moana, right? Who would think that Moana is the one that's going to save the day, right? Mulan. Okay. Well, she's this woman who goes, I mean, so that, because what does Disney have? They got big theme parks and they want everyone to go and they want everyone to think, well, I could be Mulan and I could, I think that's like the Disney theme park side, because before it's just George Lucas creating, this is the story I want to talk about.
Yeah, it's just
a legendary hero.
You're right. And it was a story of family. It was the Skywalkers were this family that changed this, like literally changed the galaxy forever. Going back to a slave on Tatooine who the chosen one is born to, and then his son, and then the story of his grandson. It's just this tradition. Now around those things are your Disney-like characters. All of a sudden you meet a hero who rises from out of nowhere, and they happen to be, like with a Skywalker or with a Solo, but like you could still have that. Disney has abandoned that idea of heritage and passing on, these different things, and it's noticeable, I guess is what I'm saying. And so it's like, I find it interesting that they very much almost resent or are against the idea of keeping some heredity element to these other characters. And then they get to the end and they're like, well, actually we need Rey to take the Skywalker name, don't we? Because we really can't get rid of it. And you're like, then what's the problem?
It might not even have happened had there not been enough backlash. Had there not been enough backlash over Last Jedi and stuff, then that might not even have happened.
Right, you're true. Yeah.
Because clearly they were willing to throw it away in Last Jedi when they said, you're nobody. Your parents don't matter.
I know.
If fans had accepted that, do you think if everyone had been accepting of the Kylo Ren part in Last Jedi where he said your name doesn't matter, like, yeah, you know what, her name doesn't matter, do you think they would have had her be Rey Skywalker at the end?
Well, no, I don't know. Right? No, they would not have. And so they might
have just moved off of it.
Right. They might have just moved off of it. And so you're like, the problem is that you decided to do the sequels and make your protagonist, first of all, you didn't know who your protagonist was. Imagine that, Matt. You start a trilogy and you're like, our protagonist is Rey, but we don't really know her origins, and we'll figure it out by movie 2 or 3.
And maybe JJ did want to bring Palpatine back from the beginning, and then I don't know. It seems, but and we don't have to go into all this right now. But we've talked about it. It's like Matt Smith, and he wanted to go deeper into the lore of the Jedi and everything.
Yeah,
they should have just from the get-go said, we're hiring one person to do 3 movies, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it be cohesive, have it planned out, have it mapped out. I wouldn't have cared. You know what? The problem is that, like, you want to make Rey Skywalker no one. I'm sort of like, okay, cool. Go ahead with your whole sort of anyone can be a hero. The Force awakens in Rey. And then you're like, you were just talking about, like, hey, Mulan, all these different like Disney heroes that they're all about can just spark up out of nowhere, and they're tapped on the shoulder and they're the hero of the story. Rey was just abandoned. We didn't know who she was. She has mysterious origins. Okay. She now is tapped by the Force to go be the next hero. All right. I'm not even totally opposed to all of that. And then you say, oh, she's actually no one. Her big struggle is that she's trying to figure out like who she is. And the hardest thing that she can face is, I'm actually no one. I really was abandoned. And I really was then called upon by the Force to be something more. And then it's the shift to, she's actually a Palpatine, but we're going to call her a Skywalker. I mean, dude, it's so wrong and bad.
You got to make it work. And they just
didn't do it.
They had no plan. So it screws the whole thing up.
Yeah. It's radical, but anyway, okay. That was fun. It's just good to riff a little bit on.
Sometimes you gotta
get it out of your system, Jeezy cow. And it is crazy news. I do want to know what folks think, about the Kathleen Kennedy stuff. And I think she's going to announce her retirement at Star Wars Celebration. I think it's going to be Jon Favreau and, as you said, Dave Filoni, second in command. Move forward, bring Kevin Feige in, bring that guy in from Dune. Dude, those are all great freaking ideas. I don't know why people aren't like hitting us up at Lucasfilm.
I know. We talk about it all the time.
They should be. So I'll try to put it in front of them here in terms of shorts and things, so that way they can actually be like, oh, you know what? It's a good idea. But anyway, we're going to be back, though. I've been talking to Matt. We're going to do Andor is coming out in what would you say, April 20 something, right? Mid-April. So they're going to do 4 weeks of that. And best we can, we're going to pop on here and try to cover those batches of episodes, because it is the best thing that Disney Star Wars has put out. And we'll come back. Maybe we'll do some predictions if you're down. In the next week. Yeah, come back, do some predictions on Luthen Rail and all the different things. Then we'll talk.
Yeah, I think there's something big there.
Big, something huge. And so we'll definitely come back and talk about that. I also want to talk to you guys about, maybe the Mace Windu book that I recently read, and just different things that I think would be kind of fun. So we'll be back soon with that. And oh, dude, there's your Finn connection. Dude, come on. It's like so dumb. It just takes me right back into it. Where I'm just like,
I know. It's just like, oh, here we go.
There's Mace Windu.
Tack another hour on. We got to talk. We could literally do 2 hours just on Mace Windu being like, why are they? Samuel Jackson's going to die, and they're not going to bring him back, and they're going to
squandered. I can't believe it, dude. Well, there's no way I could bring him back. Are you joking? There's
such a way to bring him back.
Such a way, dude. There's the fit. But I'll just go ahead and say it while we're here, real quickly. In the new book, The Glass Abyss, Mace Windu is actually technically married in this book. It's a canon book where he gets married on the planet Metagos. Go look it up. He literally has a lover. He lays with her, very well could have had a child. She then gives him this necklace that basically says, hey, once your time is over, or if you ever feel that, once our duties or our paths are kind of done, come back to me. And I'm like, okay, so they set this little story up in a canon book. If Mace Windu ever does recover from that fall, the first place he would go is to the planet Metagos, and he would literally seek her out, and he might have a child there, and that child might be the father of Finn, or somehow make some sort of connection to Finn down the line. Who freaking knows? But I just feel like it is squandered, bro. It is squandered to take. How cool would it be to take that name forward? The Windu name. Samuel L. Jackson. Holy freaking smokes, dude. If Finn Windu, I don't freaking care. Call him who he is. Like, he's a Windu, bro. Give him a purple lightsaber and let him do Vapod and let him go freaking off. I hope he's not even trained by Rey. Honestly, I hope he goes and finds a new master.
I think they're gonna have to recast him because I don't think he's even gonna come back. So,
well, yeah, because they don't care about him. I mean, they have no plan for his character, and it's a joke. It's a joke how they treated him. They didn't even focus on their own character, Rey. They squandered her too, as dumb as it is. Like, their own protagonist, they don't execute her well. They don't execute Finn well. Like, it's just bad.
Trash.
It's garbage, bro. It's good. It's the funny thing is, in The Force Awakens, they want to call the Millennium Falcon garbage. And ironically, it's actually Disney, Lucasfilm, Star Wars that is garbage. And it's been garbage since the sequels. Unfortunately, there's been some ups and downs, but it has been piss poor. It has not been it's not been great. So it is time for a change. They need to take it back, and they can. They have all the opportunities to do so. They need to. So anyways, all right, friends. Hey, again, I got links for Matt down below. I am throwing this, by the way, kind of just threw this out there on the podcast feed. This is something I'm throwing up on the Flannel Wizard feed. It's got a mixed badge of stuff. I freaking love it because I remember when we did Bend the Knee and we just had the second breakfast stuff, there for like a long time.
Yeah, for a little bit.
It's like we're just throwing it up. So get some subscribers there. Love you guys. Check it out. This is where we're doing everything. Anything that I do talk about in the future, be it Star Wars, be it Wheel of Time, be it Harry Potter, be it whatever, I'm going to throw it up here on this feed just because, it's monetized and it's a good place for me to kind of house everything. And then we'll throw these live. We have a video component for listening on the podcast. Go over and comment on this video. Matt and I can come back and we can pull up your comments and we can actually break some of those down. We love that. We actually, StreamYard, we can pull it up, we can feature it, and I can literally just talk about, your comments to our thoughts and go back and forth and continue the conversation. It's a lot of fun. So we'll be doing that, but be sure to check out also Bend the Knee. Whereas Matt says he's dude. When you mentioned those movies, that Aegon's Conquest,
could be sick.
Get me sick, dude. Let me know. It's like that would it's so many good things that are happening in that fandom that I wish were happening in Star Wars. But yeah, we'll continue to talk there. But yeah, go check them out. Where else can people find you on the interwebs?
Pretty much anywhere on the internet at SuperGainsBros.
Let's go. All right, guys. Thank you so much. As always, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.